Your name is Arabic Islamic. You know that, I'm sure.
Faith.
Ah, you're Muslim?
Yeah.
By faith? Okay. Where are you from?
From a place in Russia called Dagestan.
Dagestan. Is it where Khabib is from?
Correct.
Ah.
Before Khabib, basically no one knew where it was, so I have
Yeah, he helped me now.
him and Hasbullah to thank for that.
Nice. Yeah, true. Okay. Your childhood in 3 words.
Tumultuous, quick, and a blessing.
And what's your best childhood memory?
Probably any time I got to play with my mom. You know, I'm an only child, so I had no one to hang around with, no one to play with. I'm naturally an introvert, so I didn't really have many friends in school. I never really mingled with many people. So I think my favorite childhood memory is any time that I just got to build Lego with my mom, or you know, she played football with me. And I think it's my favorite memory now because I've come to realize just how boring it is for a parent. I guess I've come to realize, like, as a mother, you're there trying to entertain your child for hours and hours upon end and doing all the stuff that you don't care about, but you know it makes your child happy. So you're willing to sacrifice watching a cartoon on TV to be able to spend time with your child, or, you know, making this Lego set or whatever it may have been at the time. So I think now I look back very fondly at those memories. And I understand that, you know, being a single mother is very hard, but, you know, being a single mother to an only child is even harder. Because there is no siblings where at least you can alleviate some of that, you know, that time and that playtime. So I'd say any of those memories I cherish quite deeply in my heart now.
Worst childhood memory?
So there was one time when I was 8 years old. I moved to London when I was 4. My mom and my stepdad dated for a couple years. They met in Russia. You know, they trialed out living together, and you know, eventually he proposed. So that's how I ended up moving to London when I was 4 years old. And you know, that marriage fell apart quite quickly. I remember one time when I was 8 years old, I picked up the home phone, and on the other line, it's, "Hi, this is London Escorts. We're looking, you know, we're calling regarding your booking with, you know, my stepdad's name." And I was 8 years old, bear in mind. You don't quite know what that is at 8. And, you know, my mom obviously asks, "Who was that?" And I say, "Oh, it was London Escorts, you know, calling about my stepdad." And obviously I see the sadness wash over her face. And you know, it's so funny, even as an 8-year-old, I was like, no, Mom, you don't understand. They like, because my stepdad was arriving from airport. You know, my stepdad wasn't around much. He was only in London maybe 3 or 4 months a year. I was like, no, Mom, you don't understand. They escort him from the airport to the house, like they're like an escort service. And I don't know how, but even when I was 8, I knew what that was. I had that like gut feeling. And I think that when you ask me 3 words to describe my childhood, I think I said quick. And the reason I said quick was because I think my childhood lasted until I was 7 years old. After that, I wouldn't call that childhood because I had to think like an adult. So I wouldn't necessarily say that that was the worst, but I think that was definitely a turning point where I realized like, yeah, I'm probably exposed to the world a little bit more than, the other kids my age.
Did you feel guilty that you were honest about who was on the call?
Yeah. I did right after, but as I said, it's because I didn't know what that meant, but I had a gut feeling. And my mom's reaction confirmed that gut feeling to me. So I guess I couldn't have known beforehand, but her reaction solidified it for me.
And for an 8-year-old to quickly turn that around with a lie to justify that the call is, don't worry, mom, it's not that bad, it's an airport. That was very quick thinking at a very young age because you didn't like the reaction you saw. So you tried to mitigate the sorrow that you made your mom feel, and unintentionally.
I think that's part of being a protector.
I was just gonna say, you see how you like to charge people's phones? It started there. It started where at an 7 or 8-year-old Iman hurt someone, not directly, but as a child, sometimes you think you take the blame. Although there's zero blame on you. You were just a messenger. But an 8-year-old doesn't think like that. They think, oh, like when people get divorced, the child thinks it's their fault. It's like, what did I do? And the mom or dad are like, it's not you. But the child grows up feeling, maybe I did something wrong or I was a burden on my parents and that's why they divorced. Until you grow up and you start to have a rational mind. But that 8-year-old Iman thought, shit, I just broke my mom's heart and I don't want to ever do it again.
Correct.
What was the first word you used? You used a complicated word on your childhood.
Tumultuous.
What does that mean?
Rocky.
Rocky. Okay. And was the Rocky pre-8 or post-8?
I think from the age of maybe 5 or 6, I was aware. My stepdad was quite a strict character. He went to boarding school when he was 4 years old. So, it didn't matter that I was 4 years old. If I dropped the fork, it's not good. Didn't matter that I was 4 or 5 and I was learning English. My handwriting had to be better. So I think it instilled a lot of fear in me. But I don't think I necessarily minded that. I think maybe in the moment it was tough. I think definitely when you're younger, you wonder, why is this person picking on me? Like, I don't get it. But growing up now and looking at the way people are, especially my generation, the people who are around my age, it wasn't nice, but I learned respect. And I learned that some people are to be feared. And I think that's important. I think there are certain people in your life you should fear the consequences. And maybe not as intense as I experienced it. I think it's important.
How was it for a boy to grow up with no father, if I'm not mistaken, and then a stepfather that left? So it's two questions.
So my biological father was an alcoholic abusive. So yeah, he was out the picture by the time I was born. And I wish I could sit here and say that it was super traumatic and this and that, and it really messed me up not having a dad. I'd be lying if I said that. It's when you don't have something, it seems normal to you. And my stepdad, although he was my stepdad, he wasn't around much. So it was he almost felt like this weird disciplinarian teacher who I saw 3 or 4 months of the year and was incredibly smart and taught me a lot. But I wouldn't necessarily call him a father. I wouldn't necessarily call him dad. So I can comfortably say that I never really had a father growing up. And I think that goes one of two ways. Majority of the time, it goes disastrously wrong. And if you look across every single metric, growing up in a single parent household, which obviously most of the time means is, only having your mother around, is one of the biggest disadvantages you can have in life. For the very small percentage of people that it works out for, I think it works out brilliantly, because I don't have any. If you have a father, sometimes you'll take on 90% of his beliefs. Sometimes you'll take on 60% of his beliefs. Sometimes you'll take 10% of his beliefs. But the issue is, what if his beliefs are flawed? Then you're perpetuating a lineage of broken thinking. So my big advantage, and the reason I would call my childhood a blessing, although it was very difficult, and there's certain reminders here and there. I have people in my team. I have friends of mine, simple things. They know how to fish. Their dad taught them. They know how to tie a tie. Their dad taught them. They know how to do simple things. Change a tire. Their dad taught them. I never had anyone to teach me these things. I think that's probably the only time I feel a little like, I really wish I had a dad. I wish I had someone to teach me that. But I think that's also, going back to what I was saying, that's foolish to think that every dad is like that. Because quite frankly, most dads aren't like that. Most dads go to work, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with this. Most dads go to work for 12 hours a day. They hate their work. They're uninspired. They have a very sour view on the world. And that translates into their children. So as I said, my big advantage is, I had a blank slate. I could be the man that I wanted to be. There was no one telling me, as a family, this is what we believe in. My mom, I love her to bits. She's taught me important family values. And there's certain things that I take from my mom when it comes to relationships, when it comes to family. For me, I don't believe you ever quit on your family. I just don't believe in that. It doesn't matter how difficult things get. Your family is your family. That's just the way I was raised. And I'm grateful for my mom instilling those things in me. But on the flip side, when it comes to worldview, I feel like that is the role of a father. To instill in their children, this is the worldview. This is what we believe in as a family. This is what we stand for. And this is what we will tolerate, and this is what we will not tolerate. And as I said, I didn't have that. So the beauty of it was I could build my own worldview.
As a child, when you didn't have a father, then a new guy shows up. In your experience, did you feel, finally, let me latch onto him? Or from the beginning, you're like, I'm not even going to risk it because he might also go? Do you know what I mean?
Because my biological father was never around, it was never like, there was no sense of abandonment.
Okay.
Because I'd technically never been abandoned. Nothing had ever been there in the first place. So there was no sense of loss. So, listen, I never thought my stepdad was my dad. I never, as I said, I never looked at him as a father because I knew at the end of the day, listen, he's not my dad.
Mm.
So I don't think that was really an issue of mine.